Anyone else think they may be getting cabin fever? I mean, all work and no play makes for a dull day. However, actress Shelley Duvall might have appreciated some quiet in her life after filming The Shining, because apparently it felt all too real, and you don't need the shine to know that. So, did Shelley have an ally and friend in her incredible co-star Jack Nicholson? Did she get a triumphant return after her alarming retirement years before? Here's your host, Nostalgic Nick, here with these answers and more, including the way her community rose up for Duvall after a pretty divisive Dr. Phil interview. If you enjoy our deep dive, please give it a thumbs up to show support, and subscribe to the channel so you catch our next deep dive as soon as they're out. But without further ado, let's delve into the career of Shelley Duvall and the heartbreaking transformation she underwent. Who are Shelley Duvall's parents? As a child, Shelley was as inquisitive and precocious as they came, sometimes to her detriment. She was the only daughter out of 4 kids, but had enough energy for all siblings put together. She was always zipping around and usually tripping over things. It got to the point her mom nicknamed her Manic Mouse. And looking back, Duvall even called herself a terror. So it's no surprise Shelley got into acting, but not because of her family background. Her father was not Robert Duvall, the guy from To Kill a Mockingbird. Nope, Shelley has no family exposure to acting. Her dad was an auctioneer and a lawyer. But still, she dabbled in a bit of everything, learning science, selling cosmetics, and getting into nutrition studies. Shelley was just a country girl with big dreams who got her big break when the crew behind 1970s Brewster McCloud were completely won over by her chipper attitude and expressive appearance. They immediately asked her to join their project. And through this project, she got to collaborate with the project's leader, Robert Altman, which of course proved invaluable for both their careers.
Boy, was he a genius.
Now, there's proof that being unabashedly yourself wins the day. Are Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall friends? The late 70s were the era of Duvall. It's even remembered as her breakthrough and her rise to critical acclaim. In Robert Altman's 3 Women, Duvall improvised almost all of her lines, putting her on the map as a talent powerhouse. Along came director Stanley Kubrick, who wanted to adapt Stephen King's novel The Shining. Now, the main antagonist was cast as Jack Nicholson, and once Jack read the book, he thought the role of Wendy should go to Jessica Lange. However, Kubrick's first choice remained Shelley Duvall. Stephen King wasn't thrilled either, but he actually resents a lot about the film, including the characterization of Wendy. But whatever Jack's own misgivings were, they went away when he worked with his new movie wife. In fact, they had a much better relationship than the characters they played, and they shared many laughs together. The two did have some disagreements about early shots. Shelley wanted the couple to be loving to start, while Jack wanted to be annoyed right after the job interview scene. And actually, Stephen King agreed with Shelley, but the actors compromised and ad-libbed holding hands through the hotel tour. All Shelley's idea. It wasn't all work and no play, so no red rum here. In fact, while shooting a scene, even some of the most serious moments, Shelley and Jack gave themselves the giggles. This may have made more work for them, but it also made lasting positive memories for Shelley Duvall, where she looks back and says, quote, "We got along really well." How was Shelley Duvall affected by The Shining? Imagine a story of unparalleled fear, of being ostracized and targeted by a man with vicious intent. This is the plot of the filming of The Shining for Shelley Duvall. Part of it was the early friendship Shelley struck with her colleagues. Before work even began, they were able to have fun and make each other laugh. So when it came time for everyone to be deadly serious, Shelley just couldn't really do it. And working with a perfectionist like Stanley Kubrick, well, this made Shelley the target of a lot of anger. It's famously reported that Kubrick would berate and isolate her and make her do takes again and again and again. basically breaking her down emotionally into something completely raw and primal and broken. These accounts are backed by the director's own daughter, Vivian Kubrick, who produced a making-of documentary for The Shining. There was one instance when the snow machine made it impossible for anyone to hear Kubrick call for action. Well, Kubrick stormed up to Shelley, and instead of asking what went wrong, he flat out told her, quote,
"Well, you're just wasting everybody's time."
It would later come out that Kubrick ran a tough shift on a lot of people, but Shelley got a special kind of hellish treatment. She became as nervous as her film counterpart, to the point Jack saw entire clumps of her hair falling out. To film critic Roger Ebert, she'd call working with Kubrick, quote, almost unbearable. She mentions being near constantly hysterical and had a nervous breakdown on set. She cried so much she had to keep water bottles around to stay hydrated. But this is where things get even messier. In the book, The Complete Kubrick, she said, quote, from May until October, I was really in and out of ill health because the stress of the role was so great. Stanley pushed me and prodded me further than I've ever been pushed before. It's the most difficult role I've ever had to play. Nicholson backed her up, saying Shelley's Wendy was the toughest job any actor's ever had to do, and Shelley was the toughest actor he knew. This isn't an out-of-the-blue accusation against Kubrick either. In fact, Kubrick wanted Slim Pickens to play Halloran, but Pickens wanted nothing to do with Kubrick after the two worked together in 1964 for Dr. Strangelove. But even after the emotional abuse and physical deterioration, Shelley would talk about Kubrick's style with praise and even smile, giving him the credit with getting the film and crew to the point they needed to be. Well, not too much credit. Just in 2022, years after Duvall was nominated for a Golden Raspberry for Worst Actress, the Academy revoked this decision. By then, it had come to light plain as day that something was wrong on that set. And the Academy released a statement that said, quote, we have since discovered that Duvall's performance was impacted by Stanley Kubrick's treatment of her throughout the production. It was a whole lot of work for abysmal payoff at first. She was made to do the baseball bat swinging scene dozens of times, having the director tell everyone to not sympathize with her. Colleagues told to ignore you and your needs, made to wait hours to throw you off your game, hands shredded, eyelids swollen, voice hoarse from crying. Today, we remember her as an important part of film history, but at that time, Shelley was left wrung out and mocked by people in and out of the industry alike. The harmful damage was done. Why did Shelley Duvall retire? Thanks to the emotional and physical hurts of The Shining, Shelley was left drained. Looking back, she called her body rebelling against her, saying, quote, stop doing this to me. I don't want to cry every day. That stayed with her after The Shining too, and she privately battled mental health issues. After 32 years in the business, Shelley Duvall retired in 2002, with Manna from Heaven as her last film credit. And from here, Shelley also withdrew from public life and kept a very low profile. Her growing career was the cause of throwing off her first marriage in the 70s. But there were a lot of hookups and breakups since then, including a boyfriend she introduced to Carrie Fisher, who ended up jumping ship to be with Carrie Fisher. Ouch, Princess Leia. Fortunately, by 1989, she settled down with Breakfast Club singer Dan Gilroy. While still in retirement, horror movie lovers still wanted to know what happened to the enduring, vulnerable mom from The Shining. They got their wish, but in the form of an interview that would become as divisive as Stanley Kubrick's direction. In 2016, a Dr. Phil interview.
If you so much as attempt to get my moon mole, I'll kill you.
Throughout the interview, Shelley displayed a lot of hallmarks of mental illness, like claiming Robin Williams was alive, and that she was a shapeshifter. She talked about unrelated topics and discussed paranoid fantasies. And what made this so shocking was that this was the first time a lot of people had seen Duvall since the 90s. Fans of hers felt their hearts break, watching someone so clearly battling mental illness get pushed under the rug. Probably most telling was when she said of Kubrick, quote, all I'll really say for now is that if he hadn't directed the way he did, If he hadn't done everything with force and cruelty, then I guess it wouldn't have turned out to be as it was. Dr. Phil did receive a lot of pushback, saying he exploited a mentally ill woman. Shelley even said during the interview she was sick and needed help. Dr. Phil went on to say he was working with her family to get Shelley exactly that. But I don't know, I'm not a big Dr. Phil fan. What do you think? What does Shelley Duvall do now? The Shelley Duvall we met in the 70s changed a lot since then, but she held on to her dreams through it all. She likes writing poetry and even hopes to release a book of her poems someday. But in the meantime, she has given fans something to get excited about. Over the years, she has had scripts sent to her, and one of those stuck, and she returned to acting. Shelley made a big return in 2022 with yet another horror film, The Forest Hills. But this time, everyone can breathe a sigh of relief because Shelley has a glowing review about the experience. At 73 years old, she said, quote, "I know it's been a long time, but it's been great. It really has. It feels good. Makes me want to do more acting." And instead of being told to ignore her, Duvall's colleagues say she's the light of their whole set, where everyone needs and supports each other. Oh, what a breath of fresh air for the once lively and brutally tormented actress, and I can't wait to watch her in The Forest Hills. So what do you think about The Shining and Stanley Kubrick's direction? Do you prefer Stephen King's version? Have you ever stayed at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado? You know, the one that inspired Stephen King's book. And finally, give some love to Shelley Duvall. We can only hope she one day sees this. If you enjoyed our video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can catch our next trip down memory lane, giving the overlook a very wide berth. And from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.